on St. Lucie. I'm Carrie Patrick, your host for today's edition, in which we will be discussing St. Lucie Public Schools' system of tiered support for our schools. This is an exciting refinement to our past processes and one that is based upon our MTSS, multi-tiered system of supports that we utilize for students. Here today to discuss this and provide some clarifications are two gentlemen who are experts in their field, Mr. Bill Tomlinson from Student Services, welcome, and Mr. Nick Zralik from Curriculum. So glad to have both of you here today to discuss this exciting new venture for St. Lucie Public Schools. It really is a wonderful way to provide support services to our schools, and really there's a threefold positivity to this. Number one, using the multi-tiered system of supports to provide services to our schools enables us to maximize our personnel resources. Using data points, that helps us to really target what our schools need and provide resources to specifically meet those needs. And third, it's a great way to optimize our capacity for student growth across the district. So looking forward to this year. And before we really get started with the nuts and bolts of what it means, let me just take a moment and share a graphic with our viewing audience. Using slide 1, we'll see a picture of a triangle. And that triangle is divided into 3 tiers. Looking at the bottom tier, which is the foundation, that is our Tier 1 support service. That's what we do for every single school within St. Lucie County in order to meet the curriculum needs, the professional development needs, the behavioral needs of all students, all teachers, all schools. That is something that we want to continue to promote in order to build sustainability and expertise within our schools. Again, using various data points that we have within St. Lucie, we know that there are opportunities for some schools to receive additional services in order to help them grow in their capacity to be self-sustaining. And so we have a Tier 2 support system where we would have moderate support, certain days in the week that we would make a commitment to be there to support in the classroom through modeling, feedback, coaching, providing for professional development on site. We also know that based on perhaps the number of new teachers that we have within a school and the diversity of student needs within a school, we could have potentially the need for a Tier 3 support, which is more intensive. And if we see that need, we want to make sure that we garner the support, provide additional resource personnel to go into that school for support purposes. We want to operate on the system of gradual release for responsibility, because our ultimate goal is to have well-established experts within every single school to continue that sustainability of positive growth and expert go-tos no matter where we are in St. Lucie. Needs will change, we know that, and we want to make sure that our system is one that is flexible enough to meet those varied needs. So that's the general overview. You all can provide so much more depth. So let's talk about how what we are doing this coming school year differs from practices in the past, both with the way we support our schools and the way we support our students within our schools, because one is codependent upon the other. Can you start with that, Bill?
Gladly. Thank you, Carrie, for having me today. I would say that it's very important to note that the system of supports that you talked about being provided to schools this year aligns perfectly with the system of supports that we've been providing to students in this multi-tiered system that we have developed. When we're looking at providing supports, it's about all children, and it is very important to keep that focus in mind, that our number one goal is about student achievement and increase student achievement continuously so that all of our children benefit from a quality educational program. So this year we have taken that step a little bit further to make sure that we align what we're doing in our provision of supports with children and what happens in curriculum and instruction and professional development. so that we're absolutely sure that there's continuous collaboration that is going on among our departments, that we're working together to ensure that children will benefit and derive benefit from the educational program. If I could show a graphic about our multi-tiered system of supports for children, I think it would be important for the audience to see how this is laid out for kids as well.
Wonderful. I believe we have slide 2 on the screen right now.
So as you can see at the bottom of this is a tiered 1 support. This is the universal instruction that occurs for all children. And what we have are supports that are automatically built into that for students. When we have students that are not progressing at the rate that they normally should progress, they may need a level of supplemental instruction that occurs. So this would be our Tier 2 instruction. And that's about interventions that will also occur. And as we are providing those interventions, we're establishing ways in which to progress monitor their success. When we have children that need more intensive interventions or instruction, they may appear at a level 3 of need. So we would absolutely make sure that the services, the instruction, the interventions are appropriately provided for them at the Tier 3 level. And this is usually individualized or very small group of instruction.
So saying that, this is like our support that we provide our schools in that tiered system. Because in general, we have all of our schools in Tier 1. We have a few of our schools in Tier 2, and then even a smaller number of our schools receiving that Tier 3 level of support. We define what that support is, so the expectations are very clear on what is needed and what is expected.
And in our system of supports for children, we do the same thing, is that all of our children are Tier 1 to begin with, and they remain in Tier 1. And the interventions that are provided for them at support levels 2 and 3 are aligned with the Tier 1 instruction, but it will be at a more intensive nature on what they will need individually to progress.
And I know that in our MTSS model for students, the goal is that our students move from Tier 3 to Tier 2 to Tier 1, because it is our goal for all students to graduate college and career ready, and therefore they need to be independent and, again, able to sustain their own learning.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Great segue between the two systems. You mentioned there, as we just stated, the fluidity of students moving from one tier to the next. Nick, would our support services have that same fluid motion to them?
Definitely, and as we look at it, we know that just like with students, you supply the support, the resources, the needs based on what they're showing at that time. With students, we use the student data to make that decision. With schools, we have data to help us make that decision to determine what level of support do they need in order for that school to be successful in educating all those students. As we look at what we are planning to do in supporting schools, it is a shift from what we've done in the past in terms of some of the ways that we deploy our resources. In the past, typically our goal was trying to do an equal distribution of all resources, but in thinking back to what Bill was talking about with that tiered support, it's looking at how do we match the needs of the school with the support services that we provide. Even from the driving force of that, in the past, it was schools, as they were requesting support, those that requested first typically were the first ones to get it fulfilled without really looking at the resource cost that it would take in order to fulfill that request. And is that resource cost matched with the need of the school? And as we move forward, what we are looking at is defining very carefully what criteria helps to determine where do we put the most intense resources, just like we do with students, to make sure that we are supporting all kids and all schools with the best use of our resources in the most strategic manner that we can. One of the other major shifts, and really, again, it follows very closely with what Bill was talking about before, is defining the services. And as he talked about Tier 1, we provide that to all students, and really defining what does that look like. And then the supplemental services that you get when you move into Tier 2 and Tier 3. That same thing is a process that we've gone through in determining what support services can we provide to schools, what support services do we provide to all schools, and typically, as Bill was talking about with students, that would be the curriculum, but from a school support standpoint, that's looking at building capacity within those schools to be able to continue that positive momentum, that forward movement throughout. When we talk about Tier 2 and Tier 3, we're talking about intensifying that support so that way the schools can truly be successful. So definitely there are great parallels to it, ways of ensuring that every single school, every single student continues to be positive.
And I'm very, very clearly hearing discernment of how we do business and making absolutely certain that we monitor the progress in order to ensure that what we are doing is appropriate. So therefore, the data element is prime for the work that we are doing. And data takes many shapes and many forms. With this plan, we know that monitoring the service level and monitoring the achievement is something that we will be paying close attention to ensure that what we are doing is absolutely prime for what our schools need. What are some of the data points that we'll be using in order to make sure that we stay on target and stay the course as we continue to navigate to greater success in St. Lucie County?
Yeah, so the state performance data that we get from the state assessments, but also the district assessments that we administer throughout the year would definitely be part of the data points that we use. But you also have other data points that help to determine need for school, like the number of new teachers. If a school has just many new teachers at the school, obviously their need for support to ensure that we have quality instruction and then that defined curriculum being throughout the entire school year is increased. You also have things like discipline. If it is a school that has high discipline referrals, the need, so that data tells us there's a need for additional support in classroom management. You also would have things like attendance data. So there are so many data points that we gather from schools that help us to, as you pointed out earlier, make that connection to what needs and supports would need to be in place.
And we have such unique expertise in the various divisions within St. Lucie County. And Bill, you made the point earlier of how we work in collaboration with one another. And in so doing, we really build upon the expertise that we have within student services, within curriculum, within instruction, within our instructional technology throughout the district. Our school psychologists are experts at looking at data, analyzing data, and making certain that as we are problem solving with our parents, our teachers, our administrators, that we're doing the absolute best for kids. What are some of the data points that we are going to be depending upon this year to help meet the needs of our students in our system of tiered support?
I think it will go back to a lot of what Nick was talking about as well. We do have our ongoing assessments that occur throughout the course of the year. Any of our benchmark assessments or easy CBM or progress monitoring data that occurs for students. And we do pay very close attention to the entire child, the whole child, when we're looking at this. We are looking at elements that will tell us how the child is performing behaviorally as well as academically. It is so important to pay attention to that, the attendance for children, so that we can gather data to help us really design the most appropriate either instruction or intervention for children. When we are working in schools alongside of teachers and guidance counselors and others in school, our psychologists, our behavior analysts that we have in the district, our program specialists for exceptional ed, all of those individuals bring something to the table when we start talking about problem solving to get down to the real crux of why is the child not performing, or what is it that the child does actually need to perform. We are very data rich in this district, and we have lots of information that is available for us to help really design the most appropriate educational program for children.
And looking at that collaborative nature on how we solve problems for students, we cross over the bridge again to how we're going to problem solve with our schools. because this is certainly not going to be something that we plan in isolation. As we leverage our resources from the district to support our schools, those action plans will be developed in collaboration with school district personnel, site-based personnel, making sure that what we are providing as a support aligns with each individual school's school improvement plan, which also is a dynamic plan. And throughout the year, schools will be monitoring their progress toward their school improvement goals, and together we'll determine if the intervention that is provided, the support that is provided, is indeed making a difference. So again, collaboration is huge as far as the work that we are doing. And I'm so glad to be working so closely with our student services and our instructional team members and our technology team members, because as we look at the coming year, technology is going to be even more of a positive impact within our classrooms for our children, for our parents, for our teachers.
And I think it's important to note about technology that when we're really expecting children to utilize technology, we again have to think about all children and the universal design for learning. Are we equipping all of our classrooms and our technology appropriately so that children have the built-in accommodations that may be necessary for them to benefit from the curriculum or the instruction?
Yes, absolutely. We've talked about data and we've talked about technology. Both of those elements are going to be instrumental as we move into a new state assessment system, which will again provide additional data points to make sure that we are moving in the right direction. And we are getting ready to experience a rather large shift with our English language arts assessment and our mathematics assessment this year. Exciting, because the rigor is definitely there in our new standards, making sure that we are providing the support for our children to be critical thinkers. But there's a lot of, this is new, so we're learning about this and we're learning together. And I know, Nick, you've been very deeply involved in this process, so shed some light on what this new assessment is going to mean for us.
So as you mentioned, the new assessment is based on the Florida standards. As we look at it, it is the English language arts, which would be replacing the old reading FCAT, and then we have the math assessments that would be replacing the previous math assessments that we had. And the new assessments are called the Florida Standards Assessments. And as we look at those, the short name for that is going to be the FSA. So as we talk about those and think about reading, the reading assessments from grade 4 through grade 11 will be computer-based tests. I'm sorry, this first year it's going to be 5th grade through grade 11. And then following year, 4th grade is going to go through and also be online, and it is projected for the year after that to have 3rd grade online as well for that reading assessment. As we look at the assessments themselves, they are moving away from a multiple choice type of assessment solely. Multiple choice items will definitely be included as part of it, but it will also include some short answer responses as kids are going through, and to take the thought process even a little bit further, rather than just giving an answer, there's often a second question from what we've seen so far from some of the training tests, where they'll have not just what was your answer, but what evidence do you have, or what evidence can you find from the text that helps support that answer. So it's no longer good enough just to get the right answer. You have to prove that you know why that was the right answer. So the old method of guessing to get the right answer isn't going to be sufficient. You're going to have to prove that you know how that was the correct answer, and to give some of that evidence. And even through the short responses, what we've seen so far leads to that as well. The other piece that we've seen is, especially in the reading, a shift from just looking at a single text when they're replying to the answers, but combining multiple texts together and being able to analyze between those texts and make conclusions. How did the author in the two different texts make that point? Was it similar? Was it dissimilar? And then what evidence do you have to support that? So the reading assessments themselves, really, as you noted, are definitely showing the rigor of the standards from what we've seen so far. And then as we look at the math assessments, again, grades 5 through 8 will be computer-based, as well as the Algebra 1 the Algebra 2 in geometry, and Algebra 2 is a new assessment. It's not something that has been state assessed before. And then grade 3 and 4 will still be paper-based for this year as we go through. And even with the math assessments, they have over 15 different question types that we've seen so far through the test item specs, which include things such as that free text where kids are responding to a question, showing their thinking about the problem. Things like a drag and drop where they're going to be taking and moving parts all over. Different question types like they're graphing the actual figure that's being described and then calculating the area as an example. So just lots of different question types. A lot of them are technology enhanced, where the technology will allow for students to interact with it in a way that also still allows the computer to score it. So that way it makes it so we get our data back in a more timely fashion. And then the writing, probably one of our more significant changes when we think about in the past, we only assessed writing in certain grade levels. Now writing is going to be grades 4 through grade 11. And the writing test in the past was more of a decontextualized prompt. They just gave you a prompt and said, write about it. And students were able to make up just about anything to hit that writing prompt as long as it followed the general conventions that they were looking for. Now what we've seen so far is the writing is focused in on a response to text. So kids are going to be doing writing in a more authentic fashion, which is writing to and in response to something else. So they'll still be given a prompt, but the prompt will push them back to gathering evidence from the text. So just lots of different things that we're seeing this year.
But it's very clear that with the new rigorous standards and the new methodologies associated with assessing our students' growth toward achieving those new standards, these are things that are going to definitely help them in their college and career readiness. This is authentic. I heard that word. Another thing that you said is that as we were looking at training tests, as we were looking at item specs, the Department of Education is very transparent with this information. And I'm going to share a website, which is the Florida Assessment Portal. That would be slide 4. We would like to invite all of our viewing audience members to visit this site. It is www.fsassessments.org. This is a portal for parents, for students, for teachers to access information on this new assessment. Here you will find item specs for the test. You will find sample test items, test design summaries, and rubrics for assessing that reading, writing, connectivity piece. Very, very useful information here. The other thing that I would like to stress is that this is open for public comment. So please go to this site, review the information that is there. There is a public comment form on the site. It is open until September the 12th. Our state leaders are interested in knowing what our parents, our teachers, our students are thinking and feeling. So this is indeed in draft form. While we are using it to help guide and kick off the year, we know that we're going to see some refinements to this as well, so that later this fall we'll have the documents that are more permanent in nature. But again, transparency for what we are expecting our children to do, for how we are expecting to assess our children to meet their needs, and again, in different tiers of support, both within the classroom to meet our students' needs individually, within our school system on how we're going to be meeting the needs of our schools and providing support. So we see a connection between our school level of tiered support and our student level of MTSS. We are getting ready to bring this show to a close. Are there any final comments that either one of you would like to share with our audience today?
I just want to say, Carrie, that it is so wonderful, the collaboration that we are experiencing between the divisions now, and the work that we are streamlining to put forth the efforts into schools to make sure that the teachers are fully equipped with what they need, that children are receiving the supports and services. It's going to be very beneficial to everyone, and especially our children.
Agreed, fully agreed. Great partnerships that we have developed. And in summary, we've talked about our system of supports and how these systems will maximize the use of our personnel and enhance our capacity for all schools, all students to grow in their proficiencies, both behaviorally and academically, because again, it is the whole child that we are focusing on. So as we bring this show to a close, I would like to invite our viewing audience to tune in as we continue to investigate and explore various areas of St. Lucie Public Schools focus, which for this year are going to be 4 key elements. We have the recruitment and retention of high-quality staff. We have the student achievement and accomplishments that we will be focusing on, as well as high-quality instruction and our safe and caring schools. There are multiple ways in which you can stay abreast of what we are doing in St. Lucie County. I invite you to follow us on Twitter for daily updates of happenings within your St. Lucie Public Schools. And please download St. Lucie Public Schools app, which is now available and is easily accessible through a quick search for St. Lucie Public Schools. Until the next time, thank you.